So, abandoned theme parks, hospitals, shopping malls, aircraft carriers, space shuttles, Aztec temples, plane graveyards, schools, nuclear plants, mansions, lighthouses, gun stations, and Chernobyl. How do you do what you do?
Wow. Okay. You put Chernobyl last, and actually Chernobyl was the first one that I did, and it was kind of that reaction I got from posting pictures on Chernobyl kind of started the whole thing, and I discovered this amazing urbex community. Yes, where do I start? Well, first of all, I only kind of pretend I'm the photographer, you know. So like I probably in terms of the guests that you had, you must have had people who this is like real art to them, and I always feel like I don't even know if you can call my photography art, you know. I don't think there is like a deep sort of message behind it or anything special, really. Like I just go for this wow moment, and at some stage I decided that I would only focus on those truly exceptional places, where before I would just post any crap, you know, just from abandoned places. Yeah, but where do I start? Basically, I mean, this starts really. It's kind of like a little bit sad because I got divorced when I was 32, and I was the guy who would like always be watching the videos or the pictures, and I would be always intrigued by the places. I had this thing about this theme, post-apocalyptic stuff. Whenever there's movies, you know, like the Book of Eli, Mad Max, The Road, or the book The Road, like Cormac McCarthy. Like, and I don't know what it is about this theme, but it just drives my imagination to this like weird place, and I absolutely love it, and it's just everything for me. And obviously, those abandoned places, they do remind me about those places, and I kind of, after the divorce, I just needed to do something else. I just needed to change, and I was working in a school, and there was a guy there, which I mentioned Chernobyl to him, and I basically told him that I always dream about going to Chernobyl. For me, it was just absolutely, you know, the best place on earth to go to. Like I've heard the story, and you know, I was born in Poland, so my mom told me that we used to take those like iron tablets when I was a kid because of what happened in Chernobyl. So I was always intrigued about the story, about the place, but I never found anyone crazy enough to go with me. And I don't know, it was just like I don't know, it was like I feel either scared or whatever, it was preventing me to go by myself. And this guy, he was like, yeah, it was my dream too. And so all of a sudden I met this guy who is absolutely crazy with places like this. So we decided, well, now there's nothing to stop us really. And we went there.
Well, if I can jump in there, I think most people, when they want to go and try something like urbex or something that's got a bit of a risk factor, usually they tend to like dip their toe and try something easy. Whereas I would say Chernobyl for most people would be like the place they would want to build up to get to as like the main event. So how nervous were you about going somewhere like Chernobyl at such with I don't know, with such limited experience, I guess?
You know what? I wasn't really thinking. I was just the excitement and the adrenaline took over. I was really thinking too much of it. I knew there is a lot of misconceptions in terms of the radiation and how it works, and I'm not really an expert, but it's not as bad as everyone is telling, like all those stories about like some crazy mutations and stuff. It's just like made up. The radiation kind of goes down into the ground with every year. So I think now it's about like 40 or 50 centimeters in the ground. Like, don't quote me on that, but it is it's absolutely fine in there. Not all the areas, of course, but around it is absolutely fine. It's a funny thing about that, because when we were there, we had this group. There was about 10 of us, and we would be going from like a building to building, and I would be always the last one. I'll be always the last one to leave the building, and they would be waiting for me to go to a next place, right? And you know how you like, if you make people wait for you, they're not necessarily going to be happy, right? But whenever I would leave, I remember people were commenting and saying, "Greg, we can't even be angry with you for waiting, because like you have such a smile on your face every time we see you." And honestly, I felt like a child on a Christmas day every single minute when I was there. I don't know what it is. I honestly don't know what it is, but it was incredible.
So what kind of precautions are you taking so you pick out a new place that you want to go and see, you do your research and where it is. What sort of precautions do you take? Do you have to be careful about who you tell that you're going there? Do you have to kind of create a cover story for when you enter a country?
Oh my God, yes. You know, when you go to a new country and they ask you for the reason why you enter the country. So if I was telling the truth, I would say, I'm coming here to break some laws. No, really, again, it's not really that I say I would say some sort of cover story or on anything. I mean, I was very careful when I went to Kazakhstan because that was literally the mission of my life, the space shuttle. So obviously, I wasn't telling anyone. But then you see, most of the time you either have. I mean, for me, I mean, I can see what other people are doing, and people are traveling in groups of several people. For me, I always travel either solo or with one other person, really. I mean, I'm just looking back in my head now to see if I was ever traveling with more than two people. I can't think of a single time. So I really kind of just go in there, do a job. I never enjoy it. I never enjoy when I'm doing it, because I'm just too stressed. Because I just really want to do it. I don't want to get caught. I want to have the good pictures, and I've been in so many different situations where the moment you relax, this is going to be your downfall. Like, something's going to happen. Right. There's a dog. There's a security guard. Someone's going to chase you. So I don't want to go there and just waste too much time and then regret that. Oh, I didn't take the picture that I wanted. There are some places that I am just exploding with excitement, but at the same time, I only truly, truly enjoy when I leave and I know I've done the job, But yeah, I don't know if I answer your question.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I mean, you've brought me on to what I wanted to ask you, which is, you mentioned the space shuttle, and I've got to say, one of the most intimidating things I think I've ever seen in my life. I think it would scare me. Do you ever find yourself intimidated by like the history of what you're seeing?
The urbex, the abandoned places, and when you put the space stuff with it, I can't control myself. The Buran story with the shuttles and the fall of the Soviet Union and how they ran out of money and all the other things involved, how this program collapsed, and the fact they send this shuttle once and he was successful, and they remotely controlled. There was no one there. And like how everyone believes that the Russians stole the schematics from the Americans, all this stuff. All this story is truly incredible. But Kazakhstan, that was something I have. It's been the only place where I truly like trained for 3 months. I pack my bag, I walk around the bay at night every Friday to try to see how it is to have this full bag full of equipment and water and walk for this amount of time and this length. Kazakhstan was special. There's actually I have a story that I haven't told to anyone actually about Kazakhstan. I don't know if this is something you'll be interested in, but I wasn't alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is a guy that everyone knows called Josh, and he has his YouTube channel. And Josh and I, we were originally planning to go to Kazakhstan. This was our mission. And to be honest, there is a guy called Bob Thiessen, and then he has a YouTube channel, and his Instagram is Exploring Unbeaten Path. And this guy has been my true hero. When he like messaged me for the first time, I was like totally, starstruck, because like for me, this guy is a legend. And he was the one that I've heard an article about him, how he went to Kazakhstan way back. And I dreamt about this place ever since. This was just absolutely, I think for urbex people, Kazakhstan is at the top of the list. There's the Hashima Island, there's Fukushima, there's the abandoned city in Cyprus, right? There's quite a few of the like 5, holy grails, but Kazakhstan is, I still believe it's at the top. And I was supposed to go with him, but he was traveling in Japan, and he eventually he canceled on me, and I was just basically thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to do this by myself. And I really, really didn't want to do this one by myself. And about a week or maybe 5 days before I was actually flying, this guy on Instagram, this guy from America, contacted me and says that he would like to go. At some stage, he would like to go because he heard about me from some Facebook group. So it was like, I don't know how that happened, that he just, I don't exactly know, but it was kind of like a fake. And I told him, wait, where do you want to go? And he didn't really have a time frame, but I told him that I'm going next week. And I was talking to him, and eventually, somehow I convinced him to just go for it. That this is one time in your lifetime thing, and go for it. And to my surprise, he decided to go. And I think that was my first mistake, that I just went with completely a random person exploring. And, because I was doing what I was doing for the last 3 months, I was genuinely training, where before I never trained for anything really. I just, trying to keep in shape so I can run. That's really what it is, sometimes. But this time around, I really trained, because I knew that it wasn't the hike through the desert that's going to kill you. Because people say like, oh, you're just going to walk, right? What's the big deal? But it's the bag. The bag is the killer, the heavy bag, you strap in your back is absolutely killing you. So that's the biggest problem. And so I asked him questions, and he said everything that I wanted to hear, but the reality was completely different. He there was some issue with his back. He lost his back. He didn't have a sleeping bag. He didn't have a sleeping mat. And I knew that we will be sleeping on the floor when we get there, if we get there. The way he was wearing a bag, it was like on one arm, and the way he was drinking his water, I felt like he's gonna drink the whole water on his way in. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about the guy, because honestly, I would probably make the same choice just not to be alone. But the cut the long story short, we went. It was super difficult. He damaged his leg. One of his knees just gave up. Then we spent the 2 days in those hangars, and on the way back, he couldn't make it. He couldn't go back. He didn't have enough strength to go back, and he just wanted to be caught. He wanted to be picked up by the patrol, because there are patrols, the random patrols at night. I was in a situation where I was walking, and I was just so lucky that I turned around and I saw the beam of light behind me, and I just literally threw myself to a ditch and avoid being spotted at one point. But he drank all his water, and I only had a half a liter left. And he was asking me, about that, and which I felt it wasn't fair. And when we were there, he was asking me if he can use my sleeping bag or my sleeping mat. And I was like, I didn't want to be a dick, but at the same time, I'm not his father. This is not someone that I'm responsible for. It's not like a tour. I'm a tour guide. We both here are two strangers that just kind of walking to get to this place. And he made me feel that I'm somehow responsible for him, which wasn't the deal. And I wasn't planning to be caught. I had my pictures, and it was the last thing I wanted to do, to be caught and to be, to all my stuff to be taken away. And we just kind of had this big falling out, in the middle of the desert at 2 a.m. in the morning. And he would basically, what happened is he would be walking and stopping, and he wouldn't tell me. And we were walking at night, so I wouldn't know. And obviously the desert, you would think it's quiet, but there's crickets, insects, stuff. So it's pretty, and then you're walking. And I found those thermal blankets, and it was super cold. This is one thing that I really underestimated. This was October, beginning of October, and it was really cold that night. Night was absolutely crazy cold. So some explorers, previous people who were there, left some thermal blankets, and I wrapped them around my arms and my legs. So when I was walking, I was making noise. I was like, shh, 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 And so he would just stop, and he wouldn't tell me that he was stopping, obviously, because he was struggling with this leg. And I was just like, man, just tell me that you're stopping, because I turn around and then I can't see you. And at some stage we had this big argument about the fact that, I was like, I'm not gonna leave you behind, because I didn't want to leave him behind. And then he was like, no, leave me. And I just felt like, him asking to leave me behind was almost, I was just thinking what if something happened to this guy? On one part, I'm like, obviously I'm not responsible for him. He's some stranger. But then I was just thinking even from a law, from some sort of point of view, would I be liable? I can't even pronounce it. If something happened to him, what would happen to me? In that case, and so for him to do this, I just felt like it was really, really unfair. But eventually, just just what happened was, I turned around and he wasn't there anymore. And I couldn't find him. And I was obviously like, I couldn't like shout, because we were walking around. There's this spot in Kazakhstan called Gagarin spot, or Gagarin. And even though it's a desert and, you know, the base is it's an active base and they have lamplights there, and the light just goes on in the desert. It just goes on forever. So even though it's dark there, you can just feel the lights everywhere, and you just feel that tension of that you can be spotted anywhere. So I couldn't just like shout, but I was just like, you know, saying his name, thinking that he would hear me, but he didn't. And you know, I was trying to go back a little bit, but I couldn't find him. And I just had to make a decision. Like, what do I do? Yeah. So I just carry on walking. And, you know, because you see, the other thing is like, you don't have any signal. So all I have is just a blank map, and this blue dot on the map on my phone. And because I studied this map so much, like I could just, you know, it wasn't even a satellite mode. It was just one of those like Google Maps where you just see the roads, but in the desert, you just see the yellow path, you know?
Yeah.
So I could just follow that to where I needed to be. So I knew exactly where I need to go because I studied the map so hard, but to find him, it was impossible. And he got caught, and eventually he got released, and I met him at the airport, and I just said, I'm happy you are safe, but that was it really. And I lost a lot of good stuff because it was on his camera. Like, I have this awesome video of me climbing on top of the Buran and going through. And I'm never going to see that again because he has that. Yeah. But you see, I don't know how I would judge my own behavior in that situation, but I genuinely, I couldn't do anything more.
Yeah.
When I got back, I had his phone number, but my phone, he had the American number. I tried to call him, but I couldn't, like, there was no signal. I couldn't call him. All my text messages, I had a message that they would not deliver. And I just posted his phone number on Instagram, and I would like start getting people to like call him and find out like if he was alive and everything, like, because like the moment I get into the civilization, this is what I did. And eventually, like, some people got to him. I got the message that he replied to them that he's safe. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm glad he's safe. But as someone that I can have any sort of relation with, we were done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he sounds like sounds like he really wasn't prepared at all for what he was getting into.
No, but he was definitely selling it to me.
Yeah. I mean, the problem there, obviously, having never done what you do, I can't speak from experience, but it just sounds like if you're going to be traveling with someone else, you have to be almost twice as prepared so that you don't let them down. Because although you're not responsible for each other, if you create a problem, that it becomes a problem for the people that you're with. And it's not really a situation where, like you said, you can't just like shout out for help, or you can't call the police or something, because that's exactly what you're trying to avoid in the first place. So you need to be almost overly conscious of who you're with and make sure that you're not going to cause them a problem. And if everyone did that, then there wouldn't be issues like you had.
Yeah. And you know what? I just kind of want a little bit like balance things a little bit because I don't want to like crap all over this guy, because to be honest, like, because of him, very early, maybe 3 hours in, he was a major factor in one decision that was probably one that made us successful in the first place, because we noticed a person with a dog in the desert, and this was clearly some sort of patrol guy, and they have like dirt roads in there, so those jeeps, those like patrol jeeps can travel through them, and I was determined to just walk through those roads, and I just couldn't believe that there would be people in there. So I just felt like, oh, maybe this is just like a guy with a dog, He was just all in black, which was a little bit suspicious. And so he convinced me that we should get off the road and just go deep into the desert. And that was really good decision. So like I would be grateful to him for that. And honestly, regardless, like I had someone to talk to. So
yeah,
even though he would cause me all this stress and annoy me because he wasn't prepared, but he did in the other ways, help me out.
I mean, before we got started with the recording, you mentioned, you're currently in China and you've been to North Korea. I've got to ask, because North Korea, especially in England, it's sort of shown to us as this like terrifying country that you can't get into, and if you do, you never get out. What's North Korea like from your perspective?
Yes. So you see, when I was living in England, or previously in Europe, I would read some books about like Korean defectors, and there was in London. There's this guy called Gary Glendenning, and he organizes North Korean like talks. He has this woman who described she described her life, how she managed to escape. And I attended one of those talks in London, and I was just blown away. Again, this is I felt like this utopian society. It just absolutely drives my imagination. This type of places. So when I obviously went to China to work, I felt like I'm so close. So this is like my time. Like I would never have another chance to go to North Korea. And I started looking into it, and I quickly realized that a lot of Chinese people, especially the older generation, they go to North Korea for tours, and for them it's almost like going back in time, because to the people that I was talking to, and I was the only foreigner in my group. There was like 20 Chinese guys or 30 Chinese guys, and it was just me. And I suffered because of this, but that's just that in a moment. So I discovered that for them is going back in time, because for them, seeing North Korea is like seeing China in 60s or 70s.
Right.
It's like a sentimental trip almost. And what's North Korea like? For a photographer, it's the most frustrating place on the planet, because you literally cannot do anything that you want, but the potential is, oh my God, the potential is incredible. Whenever I talk about North Korea, I say the moment the regime collapses, I will take a week, I would fake that I'm sick. I'll take a week off and I'm flying the next day. Because honestly, in terms of the potential, the places, the monuments, just the whole atmosphere in there, it's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I was mesmerized. But at the same time, I had this quotation tour guide next to me. And you see, because I was the only one who was speaking English in my group, the previously mentioned 30 Chinese people, they got the one tour guide that would be talking to them in Chinese, and I got my own one that would be talking in English to me. So I had this guy pretty much with me all the time, and I would even try to cross the street to take a picture of this building, because I didn't want those, like, there was a tram cables in a way, and can I cross the street so I can take a picture of the building without the cables in a way? And they wouldn't let me, and they would produce a ridiculous reason, you know. They would say things like, "Oh, we don't want you to get lost." And I said, "Yeah, but guys, you know, I'm 35. You know, I'm not a 5-year-old kid." And they would say like, "But you don't have a passport with you. Like, what's gonna happen if you get lost?" And I'm thinking to myself, "You guys took my passport. So like, you give me the passport back, I'll be fine." It's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. They really don't want to. They just really want to show you what they want, and what they show you is crap. Absolutely ridiculous stuff. They take you to like a museum with some paintings of tigers, or they take you to the library and they talk about the amount of facts they give you. It's just really ridiculous. Like the dates, how much money they spend on it, just absolutely boring stuff. So all of that stuff is really frustrating. And when I left, I made this video on Instagram talking about it, and I honestly, I don't recommend it. I mean, for experience, I wanted to experience the propaganda tour because I genuinely felt like, is this a Truman Show? Is this where I'm going? That's what I wanted to know. But and I did experience this propaganda tour, and it was really frustrating. And I guess I got what I wanted, but at the same time, it was really painful.
What's been the most difficult place for you to access?
You know, in Bulgaria, there is this UFO building on top of the mountain called Buzluja. I think that's how you pronounce it. And this one was difficult because when I arrived there with this guy, and he was telling me how they sealed the entrance, and then, "Greg, don't get your hopes up. You're not gonna get inside." And for me, you know, I just this was one of those places where I have a couple of those places where the moment I find them out, I cannot wait. So I remember, I think it was my brother who sent me this was like my early days. He sent me a link to this place on Monday, and on Saturday I was flying to Bulgaria.
Wow.
Because it was incredible. And they have this mosaic, and they have the hammer and the sickle on the ceiling. It's just absolutely incredible. So, and there was absolutely no way for me not to go inside. So I just refuse. I just refuse to give up when I'm somewhere, which doesn't mean that I'm successful everywhere, but I would certainly do my best to get in. When I went there, I quickly noticed that they put a security booth right outside, and it was pretty windy, pretty cold. And this guy told me that there was a hole in the ground somewhere. And we were walking around, and he showed me, okay, this is the place that we used to go through. And it was now sealed, and the security booth was like 2 meters next to it. So it was absolutely, there was no way, right? But then we tried to figure out like how we're going to do this. So first of all, like check the perimeter, right? So I would walk around, and in places like this, what you do is you look for something that looks unusual. And as I was walking around it, literally behind the building, I noticed there's a bunch of rocks like piled up on top of each other. And I said to the guy, I said, like, this is it. This is 100%. This is it. So what we did, we were lucky as well. We went back and we noticed what was the security guy doing. He would walk out of his booth. He must have been bored out of his mind to be there in like this isolated place. There's like literally nothing here. You were talking about the mountain and the building, right? And we would basically put our tripod like on the edge of the building. He would come out from his booth and he would notice that we are still there on the edge. He would see the tripod. He would see my friend, and he would be like, oh, okay, those guys are still there. So then he would come back to his booth for maybe 10 minutes, right? And then he would do the same. Oh, right. They are still there? Okay, fine. And we'll come back. But so what my friend did, he stayed and he was just talking, but he was talking to himself, because at the same time I went around the building. I removed the stones, and as I was removing the stones, I noticed some random guy was kind of running towards me, and there was this American kid who just came at the same time. So I told him like, hey, do you want to go inside? And then so we did. And basically what it was, we removed the stone, we jumped to this hole in the ground, and someone must have smashed the window, the wall in front of us. So we were in the hole. In front of us, there was a wall, and there was a hole in the wall that someone must have smashed. And then there was about 4-meter drop to the basement. And I had this massive flashlight with me. So the guy was holding the flashlight, and I basically jumped this 4 meters, and I damaged my foot, but I actually only realized that it was damaged when I was going back in the car, because like the adrenaline, right, it just prevented me from feeling any pain. Yeah. So I and to be honest, when I saw this jump, like when I saw this about 4 meters jump, I genuinely was thinking to myself, if I was there by myself, I wouldn't do it, because how would I get out? Yeah. But the moment this guy turned up, I was thinking to myself, I don't care anymore, because even if I cannot get out, I'm there with someone. So like all of a sudden that's okay for me. So he kind of jumped as well, and we went in, we explored inside. We stayed there for about 20 minutes. I have this really cool picture that I'm so proud of when I was there. And it was incredible. The mosaic on the walls and this like old communism type of architecture and the Soviet art. Oh, I'm just, this old like imperialism. Incredible, absolutely incredible. And then we like at some stage we had to like crawl through the mud on the floor because someone broke the side of the door. The door was sealed, but someone like bent the side of the door. So we were like all dirty and everything. The way out was actually quite interesting. I managed to collect some wood, some pieces of planks, and I put them against the wall. And then I noticed there was a piece of metal sticking out from the wall that I previously somehow missed. So what I managed to do is to just run and jump off those planks and catch the metal piece and pull myself up. And once I was on this metal piece, he did the same. I gave him a hand and I helped him out because he was kind of smaller. So like I managed to kind of lift him up, and he went up. Then he helped me out, and we got out. And then we put the stones back in, walked around, said hi to the security guy, and then we left. And the guy had no idea that we were inside. And that was amazing for me. Like when things like this happen, where there is a security and he doesn't know, it's just brilliant. Mission accomplished.
Very quickly, I obviously don't want to keep too much of your time. I've got a couple questions left. Have you ever been caught?
Oh yeah, twice. I was caught once, and honestly, the reason I was caught because I was stupid. Like, and it's so cliche. And it's like I'm always super careful, so careful. And I was caught once in England, but in England, it's it's funny enough that I say this about the police in the times that we are in, right? But I always felt that in England, obviously I'm talking about from my perspective, you can always talk to the police, and you can always read with them. I kind of like hear myself saying this in current times. I know, but I remember I went to this like old people home that was recently abandoned, and I found an article online. There was some sort of abuse. Nurses were abusing the patients, and because of that, they closed this place. And I went there, and I just genuinely drove way up. Like I was on the way to a different location, and I had very limited information about this place because I only had this article. So I was going there hoping that it would be abandoned, but I had no idea that it would be. And I drove my car and I left the car right outside, and I thought for some reason I was just so surprised and happy that I found it, and it was because I climbed on top of the window and I looked through the broken window, and I saw this. I saw the pool table and so many furniture inside, and everything was kind of like broken and smashed and everything. My imagination was going off the roof. Like I was like thinking to myself, oh my God, that the picture's going to be amazing from this place. But what I didn't realize that this was a private property, and there was another house nearby, and someone saw us driving. Going through that broken window on the, I think it was like second floor or something. It was really tricky because literally you could have cut yourself on that window. So like it was really difficult to go inside. And I was there with this girl, and I really wanted her to go inside as well. So I was kind of helping her, and I was trying not to fall down. And eventually we just heard the police calling us from outside. But then, I have no records. So like they run my plate, I showed them my ID, everything, and all my stories, that everything that I said checked out. They were just asking me if I smashed the windows or not, which I didn't, because I always kind of take the picture of the place before I go in. So I took the picture. Obviously there was a time on the picture, so I showed them that. I think what helped is because she was a nude model, so she had like a lot of nude pictures on that. So when she showed her Instagram, the reaction of the two police officers, they were like, "Whoa, what's this?" So they almost like didn't know what to do with us. So and eventually they just cautioned us and say that this is dangerous. You shouldn't be doing this, and they let us go. So that was fine. The second time I was caught was last year. And this was literally the scariest moment of my life. I thought that this was my last day in China because I have discovered something in China. you see, I don't necessarily want to say too much detail about this.
That's okay.
This has to do with military. This is like this army kind of stuff, and it's something that I shouldn't discover. And certainly, I shouldn't be flying my drone over this place. And I was taken by it was actually national security, and I was interrogated for 10 hours. But thankfully, all of my phone and all of my laptop, all I have is just evidence of what I do. So whatever I was telling them, I had, they could see that I'm telling the truth. But they took my drone, they took my SD card from the drone, and kind of lost that. But that was scary. That was genuinely, I honestly felt that that would be my last day in China. I'll be on the flight. Next day I will be on the flight back to London.
It must be extremely difficult to be able to photograph these places because, like you said earlier, you're so focused on making sure that you're safe and you're taking precautions with security and stuff that you don't really have time to relax yourself into looking properly at what you're photographing. Is that something that really frustrates you?
Oh, you hit the nail on the head. Exactly. This is one of those things. Sometimes you just don't have time, and you see a picture, you see a potential. For me, it's like I go in and then the picture is in my head. Or sometimes when I research the place, I already know what type of picture I'm gonna have. Sometimes you stumble across something that's incredible, so you're not really prepared. But yes, it's absolutely true. Sometimes I leave the place, I check through my pictures, and I'm just like so angry because I just don't like it. I honestly, when it comes to my pictures, I probably like on one of my hands I could count the pictures I really like, that I'm kind of proud of. But most the reason I don't like them because I know what it could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as me being completely unaware of how this world that you're working in works, what are like the unwritten rules of doing urbex or visiting abandoned places? Are there rules that you kind of abide by that you want everyone else to abide by in terms of like maybe not taking stuff or not breaking stuff, things like that?
You know, when you invited me for this, I kind of genuinely I was hoping you would ask that. This is something that's really I always say, like, even pirates have the code. So yeah, there are unwritten rules of this community, and they frustrate the hell out of me when people break them. Every picture I post, I have this little disclaimer that I say that I don't share location. And every day someone is asking me where it is.
Right.
And I totally understand it. I totally understand this, because when someone else posts a picture of some place that I really want to go, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's incredible. Where is it? That's naturally what you want to know. So I totally understand this, and I don't blame people for asking. I just would respect if people, if people were, respect me back when I say to them, I'm sorry, but I don't talk about the locations. And the thing is, in England, I have experienced this just way too many times. The moment the place is known to others, the kids will go in there, they would tag the place, they would set fires, they would just ruin the place. So,
yeah.
And that's it. That's the reason I really don't want to talk about the places where they are, because I do not want to advertise where they are. And the people who are doing what I do, they would find them. We all have our ways of finding the place. You spend ages researching, and you eventually will find it. So if you have enough determination, you would find it. But I just don't want to. I don't want to make it easy for people. You know.
But is it the case though that the people that just want to ask where something is just so they can go straight there without having to put in the work and the research are probably the ones that are most likely to disrespect the place that they're visiting, and the ones that do all of the hard work and the research are more likely to respect the place and not damage it?
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right, and exactly like it's all about the effort and finding finding the places. I mean, you know, like I was posting a place from this abandoned water park. It took me 6 months to find it. You know, it's not something that's just super easy. And I also always ask people, like, you know, when you were in school, did you also like copy the homework from someone else? You know, I just feel like I've done all this homework, and then all of a sudden the guy comes in and does all the, you know, copy all my math homework that I spent ages doing. So yeah, I don't want to talk about locations. The other thing is the taking stuff and destroying stuff. This is one big rule, because you know when you get because we go to a place where we're not supposed to, right? So at least respect the fact, like, you're already doing something wrong in a way. So why should you even do even do something more like that? You know, I've never taken anything from any place, and I never wanted. There was in Kazakhstan, in one of the rooms, there were a bunch of blueprints. And this is the first time where, for me, it crossed my mind that if I somehow, there was a blueprint of the shuttle, you know, I don't know, but because there wasn't, but if there was a blueprint of a shuttle, it would be really difficult not to take it. But in terms of the other locations, no, just don't take stuff, don't tag, don't destroy. Just take pictures. You know, that's what we're doing. That's why we're going there. We take pictures, we take videos, and we share them, and I think that's enough.
I mean, it's such a big community now. I see so many channels on YouTube that are dedicated to urbex, and so many accounts on Instagram. Why do you think it is becoming so popular?
It's an interesting question. I think it's that mixture of, like, it's almost like this forbidden fruit. You know, when I'm thinking how to answer this question. When I take people to go with me, and I very rarely go with other urbex people. I would go with a friend, friends. And many times they would be reluctant to go, or they would be scared to go. But, you know, when we leave the place, when we are done, it's like, for them, it's like, this is so unusual. This is something that it's not just normal event. So this will stay with them for the rest of their life. Like, I've done this. Like, I took my friends and we went to this ship that I found, and we dragged this metal piece from the shore, because I bought a rope ladder, and I thought if I swing this ladder and attach it, I would be okay to climb on top of the ship, and the ladder kind of collapsed under my weight, and then but we refused to give up, and we dragged this metal structure from the shore, and it was so heavy, and it took us about like half an hour to drag this thing. We would move like about 30 centimeters and drop it, move 30 centimeters and drop it. Now it took forever, but then we managed to climb. But for him to do this, it was just like amazing, incredible experience. And I think people see this in those places. People see that those are forbidden places, and they are like just so unique, right?
Yeah. Well, I think we're pretty much. Sorry, go on.
No, I just think maybe that's why people are genuinely curious, right? Like when you, I was always the kid that if I was walking on the street and there was some sort of big fence, my mind was always thinking like, what's behind the fence?
Right. Well, I started this off by talking about the various places that you've been to, from just following through your feed, the theme parks, hospitals, shopping malls, aircraft carriers, space shuttles, Aztec temples, plane graveyards, schools, nuclear plants, mansions, lighthouses, gun stations. And obviously I personally grew up with an obsession with Chernobyl, the history of Chernobyl. I'm very fascinated by Soviet Russia and the Eastern State and so on. Out of all of the places that you've been to, and I don't mean specifically, but just in general, do you prefer the places that are like the hospitals or the nuclear plants? Do you prefer the plane graveyards? What's your favorite type of place to visit?
I'm not sure I have a favorite, I mean, I do like planes. Well, if there's anything space related, I discovered this rocket, this Long March rocket, this Chinese rocket. I did some theme parks where they had like a fake space shuttle. Obviously, the Kazakhstan. Anything that has rockets would probably be my favorite one. And there is one place. I'm really sorry. I probably shouldn't mention this, but there is this one place that I would say would be one of my favorites, but I can't talk about it because I live here, and they would find me and I will be out. But one day when I take a job somewhere else, I will release those pictures and post them, and then you will know what I'm talking about. But at this moment I can't talk about it. But there is this one super special place. But in terms of general, like, is it hospitals or is it the theme parks? I really don't have a favorite.
I think you've left us with the perfect mystery to end this on. What we always try and do on this podcast is make sure that people know where they can go and see the photos of all the amazing places that you've been to. So where's the best place for people to find what you do?
Well, I only do Instagram because mainly I started Instagram because my dream was always to publish a photo book. And I was thinking to myself, if I can get to 100,000, then that would be like my favorite, like my best place to kind of advertise the book. And I'm getting there. And so Instagram, the handle is Greg Abandon, and that's where you can find my crazy pictures.
Greg, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this. This has been absolutely fascinating. I'm ridiculously jealous of some of the places that you've been to, for sure.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.